The City of Old Town Administrative Services Committee, please turn off and silence all your cell phones. Second on the agenda is fireworks. The committee will continue to discuss the proposal to adopt the fireworks ordinance regulating the use of fireworks in the City of Old Town.
We have something in front of us. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, it's the one that's got proposed written on the top of it.
Okay. Is it, Chief, is this something you came up with?
Yep.
My understanding of this is that on the island itself, we'd only allow fireworks 2 or 3 days a year.
Right.
But the people out to Pushawk can have them anytime within these hours.
50 feet.
50 feet of the house, 50 feet of the house?
Of any structure.
Any structure.
Any structure.
Any structure.
Oh, that's interesting.
Chief, come right up to the microphone so we can hear you. I did call you on the way. I thought you were skipping the meeting. That's why I called.
No, these were, what I tried to draft here after the last meeting was like, kind of like a consensus of what you were talking about, trying to touch on all the issues. One of them was, I had them written down, shorter hours, depending on the time of year, was one you guys had mentioned. Possibly a restriction for the closest proximity on the island and on Marsh Island itself. And then the setbacks from property lines, or better still, buildings, I think was told to me. Then I keep up with the 50-foot setback there, and then fire danger days restrictions, and then one of the ordinances that I find in a lot of the ordinances across the state are not on public property, just to emphasize that, okay? So anything that the public owns, and that would include the schools or anything like that, so they wouldn't be able to. Technically, you can only do it on property you own anyways, but it just emphasizes that. So that's kind of what I did, was trying to take those and just for a starting point, if you guys wanted to move them or didn't like any of them, it was just a starting point, so.
I like the summer hours and winter hours. That is great.
I like the fact that you did put the 50-foot
Yeah.
of any structure. Now, so when you're saying the islands, Otter and Gilman Falls, they're permitted there?
Well, wherever the firearm zone is, so Marsh Island, I believe, is, if I'm correct, right, David? Yeah. Is the firearm zone. So you could phrase it whichever way you want, but I believe that's what it is.
What zone?
The firearms. was
So no
prohibited.
firearms
No
with-
firearms on Marsh Island.
Guns, okay.
So I figured why rewrite what we've already done with guns and everything like that, rather than just restricting it to like maybe, downtown or zone 1, 2, 3 that people don't really understand or anything like that. So we already have firearms, so I just put that in there like that. And then the 50 foot of any structure, which is important because, outbuildings and things like that, and people throw them off their decks in close proximity to the houses and things like that. And then and that would eliminate some of the, if there was any problems out in the other parts of town,
Right.
at least they're fairly safe. They're 50 feet away from any structure. I think someone mentioned last meeting that the property lines vary and they're very hard to, so just go with the structures. And that's what a lot of the other towns and cities in Maine who've put restrictions on them use.
So so on the holidays that I'm looking at, so July 4th, not before 10 a.m. and not after 10 at night. Well, was that what it was before? Or did it end at 10 o'clock at night for July 4th?
Yeah, well, some of them go to 12:30. On July 4th, yes, at 10 o'clock. See, that's July 4th day. If you notice the way it's written on
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve,
I'm sorry, not Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve.
Yeah, New Year's Eve, exactly. That's the best way I could see it phrased in other towns and everything, whereas you can't fire them off between the hours of 1 and 10 a.m. Because January 1st, you know what I mean? So they're over at 1 effectively on December 31st.
Oh, okay.
It would be January 1st, but that's the way that works, so.
So basically on New Year's Eve, they can shoot them up until 1 a.m.
Correct.
And then on July 4th, they can shoot them up till 10 p.m.
Correct.
What do we do for Riverfest? How late at night?
They were over by 10.
They're over by 10.
The Riverfest, this is consumer fireworks. This is your consumer
okay.
fireworks law, just so no one's confused. It's
Okay.
different for a licensed pyrotechnic.
Okay. Well, some people think they're that, though, I think.
Right.
The only thought that I got is we have a few days, I don't know how many, but maybe a month, that it's not dark at 9 p.m. in the summer. July 4th is fairly close to it. I don't know what time sunset is on July 4th, but
This is 10 p.m. on July 4th.
I understand, but I'm saying before that.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
From like around the 21st is the longest day of the year, right, of June.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some days in there when it doesn't get dark till almost 9:30. So basically, we're
To do
banning
the
fireworks.
Do the
Pardon?
fireworks. It doesn't give them a lot of time.
Basically, we're banning fireworks for the month of June almost. Except for the 4th of July. I don't know,
You think 11?
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, why wouldn't we just change it to 11? No?
well, 11 is pretty late if you're gonna let them do that for the whole month.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so you're saying for the month of June you're talking about, or you're talking about the whole summer
Well,
hours?
Right in there, 10 or 15 days each side of the 21st. I don't know, I didn't bring my
Yeah,
iPad to look at sunset.
So you're
but
saying it's not dark enough at 9 o'clock, is what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, yep.
Well, I don't know.
What do you think, Chief?
You're correct there, okay, 9 o'clock is about it. This just happens to be what most of the towns that had ordinances did. I just want a little disclaimer from myself, and I think I speak for Chief O'Halloran right now. We don't have an issue at all. We haven't had many issues, okay? We want to clarify that for the people that do. But I know that some people have, and they brought it to your attention, so that's why we drafted something that we
Yep.
probably could live with. I can move those hours around, you could move those hours around, you could extend it an hour, or you could revert back to the state hours. There's all kinds of
Which is 10 PM.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think, in my opinion, I just think that's law, because like you said, with the problem areas are in our part of town, and that's where we've had the most complaints. 9 PM I thought was good, but you are right. There's
We've
certain
done away with
nights.
that except the 4th of July, though, in your
Right.
part of town.
Right,
Right.
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 So it's a non-issue there if it's 10 or 11. I mean, one night out of the summer, who cares?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
really.
maybe some people don't care, but
Right.
Exactly. I think that's what you were trying to eliminate.
Yes.
It was the constant barrage,
Constant.
correct?
Right, exactly.
So, I think you could definitely extend that, that 1 hour. That's not a problem moving that around.
So go until 10 o'clock
So you can go to 10, that's fine.
For
If
all-
that- If that works, or, whatever you want,
for the whole summer.
yeah. I just could change that summer hours. It's easy to change that, from 12 to 10. Just. And
the other side of that coin is you're only banning about 2 or 3 weeks of fireworks there. They got the whole rest of July and August out on the lake to set off fireworks, so
Exactly.
maybe people sleep better with them being over at 9 o'clock.
Right.
That's the other side of that coin.
That's how I looked at it I know when people brought it, and somebody that has a 3-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
9 o'clock is late enough because they're in bed and the banging starts, so it's one thing for me to be up, but for Sydney, who goes to bed before that, the banging starts and wakes her up.
Right.
I know the neighbors were the same way.
Right. And on the special holidays, I think, even in our area of
Oh, I
town,
think
David,
the
I could say,
holidays, that's not a big deal.
if they're careful,
Right.
okay, which they have, a lot of people, most people have been right now. So we allow those on the 3 holidays that seem to be a large amount of the time that people fire them off. I think it's good compromise right there.
At 9
And that,
o'clock.
everyone still gets to set off fireworks, and
I mean, if we try it for the summer and then see what the feedback is, we've kind of tried, we let things go and people knew we were watching it, so I think things calmed down a little bit, but at least if we try this for one summer and get some feedback.
Well, I think the newness has kind of worn off a little bit, too.
Right.
And, that people, yeah,
We also don't have anybody in town selling them
Selling
anymore.
them.
no,
Right.
yeah. And they're expensive
Right.
to fool around with, so.
So this would have to be, so we'd have to send this to the full council to accept this for a new ordinance, right?
correct. And all I need you to do is point me in the right direction. If you'd like me to change that till 10, or just leave it, it's up to you. Totally up to you.
It's you and I, you wanna leave it and see what
I
happens?
say leave it, let's see what happens.
I'm all for that. If we can't vote to send it to council, we'll just
Right.
send it to council.
Yeah, I think we can just send it to council, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
It has to have a reading anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right. Thank you, chief.
Second on the agenda is the committee will discuss adding a conflict of interest section to the council's rules and procedures.
Oh, the reason why I wanted to bring that up, and Laurie and I have had a very, very good discussion on this, as far as in a lot of instances, and I'm hoping that the lawyer can help as well, they have a conflict of interest section within their rules and procedures. It can't be part of the charter, it has to be rules and procedures?
I
Is that
think,
the way they go? Okay. That if you are a spouse of a city employee, that you cannot run for council. Now, we even had a discussion that we might want to even go further than that, but I would be, as a member of the council, I would be happy if it was just spouse. I know they have a state law that if you are in the school committee, on the school board, you cannot be, if you're having, your spouse is an employee of the school system, you can't be on the school board. You can't run for the school board. I think sometimes it's really difficult to separate yourself from something that's happening with, even if it's not, even if it's just a talk or a conversation, to remove yourself from not trying to add information that you might have heard from that person, from your spouse. And I think it would be, just make, I don't know, I just think it's the right thing to do at this time. Not saying that Lori, Counselor Smart has not been a great asset to the council. She really has. She's done a very, very good job. But I think it would be a whole lot different if we had, all of us had spouses in the city working. I think that would make things a little strange within, your own interest and stuff.
Right.
So I'd like to see that
And I
added.
think it makes it hard on the counselor as well.
Absolutely. Oh,
And
I
I
agree.
think it's
Yep.
really hard, and because you can't help but, have conversation and knowledge that, makes you more aware of some situations. And the thing that I've noticed is that if you have to abstain for a vote, we have 7 people on the council for a reason.
time, yeah.
And that's happened once, and that can affect the way, and so I think to me, that's hard too. And if Councilor Smart was here, I would ask her what she thought, how because it's different, deciding to do it, and then when you're actually here, her opinion might be different, and it would be good to hear that as well.
I'll just read you an email she had sent Patty and myself, and I told her I'd read the paragraph. I don't feel that prohibiting the relative of a city employee from running for council is necessary or necessarily fair. I'm currently in that situation, and any items that come up that affect someone that I am related to who works for the city, I stay out of. Excuse me. I think as long as the other council members keep these types of situations in mind and don't allow involvement by related members in those matters, it'll continue to be a non-issue. It'd be too bad to keep someone who is willing to serve the city off the council from running due to what a relative does for work. Thanks, Lori. And I told her, I said that the next, this discussion is going to continue. We're not going to try to get this.
I just
Image
know of
tonight.
areas where there were people that were employed within that organization, that city, and it can cause some problems as far as employee spousal relationships all around. And I think if the state has decided that, why they haven't gone to the council area, I don't know, but a state says that as a school board member, you can't be an elected member of the school board, because if you have a teacher or you have an administrator or somebody that's your spouse. I think that there is a conflict of interest. We do vote on budgets, we vote on all of those things that will directly affect them.
And I remember at one point we talked, Eric had explained that it has to do with, it have to be a monetary benefit. That's when it becomes a conflict of interest, if I understood it correctly.
And-
That's right.
and
In public perception.
Frank McGuire sitting in for.
Frank McGuire.
Yep.
It was, do I understand that right, sir, that it basically, if it has to be a monetary compensation, that's really when it comes to a conflict of interest?
There is a statute, a municipal employee statute, I don't know if Eric provided you with copies.
I think he did.
I can give you copies to section 2605, and that relates to.
Excuse me, could you come to the microphone?
Oh, I'm
Because we're on TV.
Sure.
If we gotta be on TV, you have
Oh,
to be on
good.
TV too.
I know that is lots
He's
of
thinking about
stuff.
having sub tonight.
Yeah, I
He's
know.
all
It's
worked up
thinking
about
so. I
subbing
got them
that.
all nerved out.
I'm Frank McGuire, and Section 2605 of the statutes deals with a pecuniary interest. That's correct, direct or indirect. And it has a definition in terms of a financial interest in a company that might be bidding on a city contract. If the person owns 10% or more of the shares of that company, then they would have a pecuniary interest in that company, which would conflict with their obligations. There's nothing in the statute about marital relationships. There is separately in the statute, in a different section, a provision about disqualification, which says when a person is required to be disinterested or indifferent in a matter in which others are interested, a relationship by consanguinity or affinity within the 6th degree is disqualifying. So if you have to be disinterested, well, actually, affinity does relate to marriage. So consanguinity means related by blood. Affinity means related by marriage. So the statutes in Title I, Section 71, Subpart 6, would say that in the particular matter, if there's a financial interest, then the person would be disqualified or would disqualify themselves. But it's a case-by-case situation under this statute, not a general prohibition on service.
So in this particular case, there's two people within the city. Because you said the relations as well, blood relations, correct?
Well, it says, when a person is required to be disinterested or indifferent in a matter in which they're acting in a
Right.
public capacity in some manner.
Right, so
Then a disqualifying interest could arise by blood, or it could arise by marriage.
the daughter works.
But it's a case-by-case, a
Right.
matter-by-matter. So I guess if you were voting on a salary increase for a family member, that would be an example maybe, but it would.
So the whole budget wouldn't be a matter of disqualification? So if we were voting on.
I think it's more of if Kyle was going to get a raise or something along those lines, or tab, I think that's I don't think I understood it from Eric once, like a whole budget, that's not,
And I agree.
I think that's what he said to us.
did
I
say
think he
that.
said that if it was more of a,
Individual.
council, not all calling, like you say, individual, I think that's what he had stated that night.
So I don't think the statute would disqualify a person generally from serving or
But
voting on a budget.
if there was more than one member of our council that had spouses within the city, whether it's in City Hall, Public Works, or those kinds of things, it would be very interesting if there was something that was on the agenda where they had to both be disqualified, as Council May was saying. We could be in a predicament as to a tie vote, or, 3 people, 4 people.
Yeah. And that's why typically the panels have odd numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
What do we know as far as the school board, what the state statute as far as for the school board, is it,
Spousals only.
is strictly spousals only?
Is
It's
that
not-
correct? It's spousals only, isn't it? for the
Truthfully, I
school?
didn't bring that statute with me at 20A. I know where it is, but I can't recall the specific provisions of it. I could look it up while we're sitting here.
You can, but I know that I've looked it up before, and when I was on the.
I know it is
the
spouse.
school
Is
board,
this
I know
spouse
it's
only?
just spouse only.
It
Yeah.
is. And Bill, because Bill, as we know, is on vacation, so I sent him a couple of emails, and he wrote me back and just said, David, there are towns and cities that do have these ordinances.
Yeah.
Old towns got to decide if they want to do it.
That's right.
But he said that you're not like the first,
No, I know that.
person
Oh,
do it, so-
absolutely, I know that.
right.
Because we've never had this happen. I mean, we've always had people on the council that were, people who volunteered to do this and just didn't have any spouses
Any
that were
ties.
working. It just never was that way.
But I don't, as Linda said, excuse me, earlier on, I also wanted to talk about a tie-in at some point about employees, if that's even a thought, that if employees get done, is there a 3-year or 5-year grace period before they could run for council, type of thing?
I don't think so, because I think we had a member, didn't we?
I know, but I mean, is that something we should look at?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know,
Oh,
if
I
someone
see.
leaves on
Somebody
bad
leaves,
terms, or if they leave, you know, I
You
mean.
run for the council and.
Right.
Well, I would guess that's kind of interesting because,
I've kind of thought about both. I know I've talked to Carol about both. This one, but I also thought about that because we know that's happened in the past.
I know we have.
And so I said to Carol, I said, you know, maybe that's something, if we're gonna look at this, let's look at it, everything, and maybe encompass all of that, if that's what the council wants to do. But, of course, we're missing two people tonight. But at least Linda got to, because I know we wanted to hear from Linda.
And I think we should pursue it.
I do too.
At least follow up on the discussion and see what our options are, because I do think some things can get put aside if you can't vote on them. And we did have, it's a no vote if you don't have the.
And I'm gonna steal it, it's true, it's perception too. Because
Eric said that.
Yeah.
Eric
public
had said that.
It's public perception, and the thing is, I know some of you have a lot more people talk to you about things, but the people that talk to me, one is definitely about the Jefferson Street School, and this has come up quite a bit too, as far as how can a person run when their spouse is an employee for the city? Isn't that a conflict of interest?
Yeah, I don't.
And personally, I see it that way. And whether anybody else does, but my personal feeling is, it is a conflict.
Right.
Even though it's a budget that has many, many aspects to it, it will directly affect that person sitting up here as to whether or not we give a raise, don't give a raise, or any of those things. I see that as a monetary. Not that we give huge raises by any means, but.
And it's not that and it's not an effort to deny people running for the council. I really don't think that's the case. I just think it's, perception is a lot of it, and being able to, I think it's hard to divorce yourself of the situation. That's a poor choice of words.
It is.
But to, put yourself on it, you're bound to have that relationship and know things that the rest of the council doesn't know. And, it's just bound to happen.
And I do want to say, I did talk to
You talked to Laura.
quite a while
Yeah.
ago, and that was not the way she felt about it.
Yeah, and she'd sent the email to Patty and myself, and I just said I would read that paragraph. But I hopefully we can talk about this again next month, hopefully at the next committee meeting, and everybody will be here so we can bring everything up. And I mean, I know I'm not going to really speak for her, but I know at times she struggled with some of these things you guys are talking about, that knowing stuff and having her family being employees, so I know that that's out there too. But I also know she, 2,500 people voted for her, so they must have not thought it was a conflict. So I definitely see both sides, but I think I agree that, we should look at this and look at the employee part too, and continue to talk about that. Just my 2 cents anyways.
So for next month's meeting, could you get us a couple samples from other towns as to what they have for employee and not employee? And also what they have for
I think he
past
gave it.
employees of the city running for
He gave it to
public
Bangor.
office?
Bangor doesn't
And it
have
was
one, I don't think.
huge.
I don't think they had one, though.
I thought at one point, Eric might have gave us Bangor, talked about Bangor's, and he said it was a lot. And he said you could simplify it down.
I do have a procedural comment. Eric, I think, did provide the sample of the Bangor
Think he did.
ordinance.
He
But
did.
the Bangor ordinance is a little different than what you're now describing, in that is people who are qualified and elected to serve on the council, but who in a particular issue, either they feel or another councilor feels they have a conflict. And then when the issue is raised, they have a procedure to deal with it. And the council, not the affected member, votes. And if the other councilors vote there's a conflict, then that person is excused from voting on this particular subject. I think, though, if you wanted to take the more sweeping step of disqualifying a citizen from public office altogether because of a marital relationship, I'm not sure you can do that in the council procedural rules. You may need to look to the charter.
I think that, I
And
thought
see, I
Bill
thought
said it
the
was a
charter-
charter
I
change.
thought
I
it was
think,
a charter,
and I
that's
think
why I
Eric
went.
said that too, from day,
It would
it
be
was
a
a
charter,
charter.
Yeah, and you do have a charter provision on conflicts, but it deals only with
Very-
personal
yeah.
interest in contracts, which
Right.
is Article 10, Section 1.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
thought that's what Eric.
procedurally, you may, if you're talking at the level you're now discussing, which I hadn't understood before
Yeah.
now, you may need to look beyond simply rules and procedures of the council.
That's why I questioned it when it was on rules and procedures, because I thought, when we talked about it before,
It
it
is
had to really
charter.
be a charter
Yeah.
change.
I think that may be right.
Yeah.
So we can put this on the agenda again next month, and hopefully everybody's here, and if we make some headway.
We need a motion, we don't have enough to make a motion to adjourn. We're going to adjourn the Administrative Services Committee?
It's over.
That was a good meeting.
Okay. I will call the January 21 meeting of the Public Services Committee to order, and we have one item. We'll discuss a request from Ken Wark for alternate downtown parking permits.
I think Chief is gonna.
I don't see Mr. Walk here, so I'm not sure exactly what he's proposing, but my discussions with the manager is that he's looking for maybe a limited number of days for somebody who maybe just wants to come visit someone and doesn't want to buy a permit for the full price. That's my understanding of what he was asking for.
So someone that wants to come visit, somebody that's in the,
Right. He doesn't want to pay I believe it's $250 for the permit, because he says that they're not going to be there the entire winter. They're only going, this is my understanding, I hate to be speaking for him, but this is my understanding of the issue that he raised, and wanted to know if he could get sort of one that was not as expensive for a
Like a
shorter
weekly
period of
pass
time.
or something,
Right,
or-
something like that, or 20 days or something. And Bill and I talked about this at length, and it'd be extremely difficult for us to try to
Track
manage
that.
that.
right?
Because we wouldn't know the difference or how many days they've used of that. You know, theoretically, they're buying that spot for a year. I mean, they
Right.
can do that for a year, and that's not really extravagant when you stop and think
No.
about that.
Why doesn't he just buy one more pass, and then that way, if somebody was coming to visit, they would talk to him, and he could
Exactly.
give him that pass for that amount of time?
He could. The only thing we would need to do is we kind of go by the plate number.
Oh, I see.
So he would just, I mean, it's not really difficult for them to do, but if he had that spot, that person then that needed to come and stay could just call and say, you know, Mr. Walk has this permit number, and we're going to have this vehicle here for this period of time. So something like that would work. But for us to try to figure out who's got a 20-day permit and who's got it'd be very difficult for us to do.
Would be a lot of work for not a lot of money if it's going to be less
Exactly,
than,
yeah. Yeah.
So you're saying they could use his spot just for those days that they're here?
That's what he'd like to get
Yeah, that's my
a
understanding. is that-
visitor's
yeah.
pass, so to speak.
Right, that's a good terminology for it,
But-
like a
Right, but
visitor's
you're
pass.
saying that they could just call, or he could call and say, this person's gonna be here with this license plate number for 7 days, and
Well-
I'm gonna let them park in my
Well,
spot.
following up on Linda's suggestion is that if he just had an extra spot.
Right.
That he could use for, you know, transient.
Oh, I see.
Folks coming and going.
Or his people.
That would be,
Yes.
that would be fine. Yeah, that would work out fine for
Where
him.
are his spots? Are his spots here or
He's
there?
got some, I think, that park over on Shirley Street, and I think some go here.
Yeah.
I think we've got about 14 of them leased right now, and we've got over 20-something that are available. So there's plenty available. And what we do is, when we have the list, the permits are sold, every week or so, the secretary sends out a list to all the patrol officers that these vehicles are the ones that have permits. And so it's hard, because if during the middle of a snowstorm, if there's a couple of inches of snow on the vehicle,
Yeah.
it's hard for us. If they just had a permit, it'd be hard for us to see it.
Yeah.
So that's why we just go by the plate number, and we
Yeah,
know it's
makes
either,
sense.
it's either good or it's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so his proposal, if I'm interpreting it correctly, would create a lot of issues for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather, you know, suggest that he do something like that, or suggest that he can, you know, maybe we don't make it clear enough that people can use that year-round if they want, and that sort of takes a sting out of
Yeah.
less than $1 a day for
Mhm.
parking. So,
If the secretary sends out a list once a week, why couldn't they just add that one license plate if we did it, say, by the month? Then
Well-
4 times that month, that license plate would appear on that list, and if it wasn't there, then it'd be illegally parked.
well, we just wouldn't know, because I believe he doesn't know when the people are coming and going either. So it would be hard for us to make that connection. If he just gets one that's a 20-day pass, we don't know which 20 days they're gonna be there.
Well, we could do it by the month, though.
I'm not sure that's how he wants it.
But I'm saying, we could do it by the month. If I was gonna come visit my family for Christmas, say, and be here for 2 weeks, I could buy a month of December permit for whatever, $50. The secretary would have that license plate for that month, and we wouldn't extend it beyond that, or before that.
If that's what you wanna do, that's fine.
I'm just making a
Yeah,
suggestion.
yeah.
I don't know.
Just
I'm
the
throwing out
impression,
Another alternative.
Right.
If the secretary does it once a week anyway, and they check it once a week,
yeah.
she would have that license plate for
$250,
that month
yeah.
to put in with the list that she's sending out.
Assuming that they provide us that information,
If they don't, then you ticket it.
No, yeah.
yeah, they get ticketed and towed, usually. Yeah,
You know, okay, you didn't
Yeah.
provide us the information, sorry.
yeah.
You bought this permit for this car for this month.
If that's what you want to try, I mean, we'll try. It just on the surface of it, it sounded like, because he was saying that, you know, they may come up for the weekend and then they may go back, and there was no particular time
It wasn't a set dates that they were
or
coming.
set dates. It was going to be very hard for us to try to manage who was going to be there, which car was going to be there, and you
It's
know,
more than, it's less than a month. It's it's a
Yeah.
day here and there.
right. That's my impression of
There are
what.
friends who come and want to stay the night and they need a place to put their car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Dave, you're shaking your head. Were you in the conversation?
Yes.
Is Chief, did they,
Am I interpreting that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's not set dates like we're thinking type
Yeah.
of thing? I mean, I understand what you're saying, Stan, because we had fall semester, spring semester parking passes and year-long passes down at the university, but, so I was kind of thinking that at the beginning, that maybe we could maybe offer some options, instead of just a year, maybe have a monthly one, or,
Yeah.
I say fall, but, you know, whatever, 3-month pass, but that might be too hard for you guys to keep track of.
Well, it's very easy for an error to occur, and
Right,
the person's going to be looking at a couple $100 tow bill probably, and,
right,
you know.
And that's also only one landlord. You start having multiple landlords.
right.
Same thing. It's-
Right.
It's gonna cause some issues.
Yeah. I think the option, as Linda suggested, buy an extra place and, you know,
Yeah. The
Right.
landlord will still have to be paying attention as well.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not
we're
an
gonna throw
easy.
back at the landlord's responsibility, it's not ours.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Was
Yeah,
he
I
gonna
agree.
be here tonight, Dave, do you know?
I don't know.
He's not here, so, no.
No.
Mhm.
And these aren't, is it a specific spot or a number of spots?
We have areas that we allow them to park.
Okay.
Yeah, and as I said, there's some slots over here on Shirley Street and then here in the city park.
I wonder if it would be maybe an added expense, but maybe put this on whoever wants to do it. You put up a sign that says this is reserved for whatever permit number, and then they pull up, and if someone's in your spot, call you, and they tow it.
Well, we don't,
I know
What'd you say?
there's a sign that says this spot reserved for, not the name of the person, but for permit number.
That's what it says now?
No, I'm saying
Oh.
if we put up a sign,
we're,
$250 or $300 for the sign, then he works out whoever parks there, be like, this is your spot to park. And if someone is in that spot that isn't that car, they get ticketed and towed.
again,
what
you know,
they do on campus with some
the problem
reserved parking.
sometimes is that if there's 2 inches of snow on the car and we can't see the permit, we go by the plate number.
Right.
And
But if someone drives in who has permission to park there, and someone's in their spot,
Yep.
then you call up and be like, someone's in my spot.
Right.
They're not really assigned right now.
they're-
There's no
Right.
sign.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
there's no signage or
I'm
anything.
suggesting a sign at the cost of whoever buys the
Yeah.
The spot?
annual, then it's
Yeah.
their spot for the year.
I guess I thought they were signed down there. I didn't realize that they weren't.
There's
Isn't
nobody
it-
assigned any, you know, like number 1, spot number 2, or anything
Oh,
like
okay.
that, you know.
It's interesting.
That might be an alternative they had with selling one spot for the year, though. It might also be easier for you people to police, because
Yeah.
you could label them any way you wanted to, or we could,
Yeah,
you know,
if-
you could sell spot 1 through 8 to Ken Walk, and he can worry about his own parking, and then if somebody illegally is parked there, call the police
They notice,
department,
yeah.
they'll tow it.
That's an option.
They
We
can
could
argue
do
it out
that,
with
yeah.
Ken Walk, that why he had
Exactly.
their car towed.
Yeah.
How much gonna cost to sign something
Then he
like
could buy
that?
an
Shouldn't be
extra
that
spot,
much.
and it'd be his.
Yeah.
Anybody could park there that wanted to.
If,
with his
if, yeah,
permission.
if you want to do, we don't have the signs, you know, now, but I mean,
understand.
they're not signed now, but if that's what you'd want to do, we can look into that.
Well, that might be something you could discuss with him, that this
Yep.
is, this is the alternative.
Yeah.
And it'd be easier for the police department then, because you wouldn't have to worry about it.
Right,
unless
we don't
somebody
care,
called you and said
yeah.
they were parked there illegally.
Right. Yeah, it would be simple.
Well, and if there were signs there, that would be the only place that there could be cars parked, too.
Right.
Right.
That's right, I don't think it's a
yeah.
bad idea, warmer weather when the ground
We put
thaws
'em where
out, just
they
put
are.
them in
Yeah.
there.
Right.
We just
And-
put them in anyways. I mean, and then they buy the
That's
spots.
a good point, too.
We put them in and then they buy the spots, and it's easy for you guys to track.
That would be easier, yeah. Because we
Right.
wouldn't act, we wouldn't have to act then unless somebody complains that somebody's in my
Exactly.
spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Label them, like you say, 1
Yeah.
through whatever it is.
Because the way it is now, are they, I know they're not assigned, because I've never seen
Right,
any signs,
right.
but are they like a certain portion?
Right, there's areas, and it's to help them to keep the
That's what I
the
was
snow
wondering,
removal.
because, yeah,
Right,
you
that's
have
an
to have
issue
them
with it.
together.
We try to have
so
them
that the-
together and
yeah,
try to have them, yeah.
Yeah,
And that would help that, too, if they were all
Right,
together.
yeah,
It's not a bad
Yeah.
idea.
yeah.
Get warmer weather and put them in.
Yep.
Nice job, EJ.
Yep.
You paying for it?
so,
Sign job.
so should we, do we need to look at this this request a little further, or send it to the council and get, because,
I would think at this point in time, you'd send Chief back with our thoughts.
yeah, yeah, and see, and
Said.
see what, yeah, and see how he, and then we'll come back to
Right.
committee again, and then we'll decide how to handle it, but that does sound like a reasonable alternative. And also with, maybe discuss it with, and Public Works too, to
Right.
see about removal, if that might make snow removal a little easier.
Maybe get
If
some
there's-
prices on the signs too, what it's gonna
Yeah.
cost to do it.
Yeah, the whole deal.
Do that.
Okay, so we'll leave this for the next meeting, next committee meeting, and that's the end. May I have I do have everybody here.
Yes, you do.
May I-
Motion to be adjourned.
A second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, this meeting's adjourned. Okay, next is,
What is the next one?
Mr. Nuttall.
Mr.
he's not
Nuttall.
here.
Who's on that one? Was everybody else here?
Oh, pass it on.
EJ? Okay, all right, I'll just do it. I call the January 21st, 2015 Economic Development Committee meeting to order. The item on the agenda, Airport Manager Lance Farrow will give an update on the Airport Master Plan. I do believe it's going to be John Rulo doing
I'm
that for us tonight.
definitely not Lance.
Lance is gone for a couple weeks, or a week, and so John's going to update us how that master plan is going.
Thank you. Yeah, Lance is out and asked me to fill in. I know the master plan's been presented on several occasions. It has been finalized. It's been sent, the final draft was approved by the Public Advisory Committee that was put together in the city to review the airport master plan update specifically. It was reviewed, approved, sent to the main DOT for their comments. They commented, sent it to the FAA planner in Boston. They commented. It's been finalized. So the next step in the process is to come back to the city for signature, council approval, then sent back to DOT and FAA for their final approval and implementation. So the next time you hear about this, you will have the actual master plan prior to full council meeting for approval.
Is that next
Bill
month?
will sign it. Yeah, that's next month.
So in February, we'll have it.
Yes. Part of me being here today was so that we wouldn't miss the step through the, and have to go
Right.
beyond.
Okay, so we'll have it for the next meeting, and you said everybody has seen it. Did the airport committee see it?
Yes.
They did. Did you see it?
No?
There was a special committee that was put together
Oh,
by the
special committee.
requirement for the FAA requirements was to have a PAC, a Public Advisory Committee, specifically for the master plan update.
Okay.
And many of the Airport Advisory Board members were also members of that committee. So they've seen it,
Everybody's pretty happy with it.
yes.
Good. Any questions for John? Thank you, sir.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
How much in advance will we get the copy of the master plan?
When I talked to Stantec, the consultant, they thought I'd probably have it by Friday. It's procedural and administrative. Content-wise, there was no changes from the DOT or from the FAA. You know, that 20-year plan of what the airport is to look like and identified in the master plan, that hasn't changed. It's just some of the procedural stuff that's FAA, DOT funding-wise. So I would expect by a week from Friday, if
You'd have
not
it?
sooner.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, John. Mr. Russell just wanted to give us he talked to me before the meeting, he just wanted to give us a quick update on the comprehensive plan?
Correct.
Correct. And I can't remember I know Linda wanted to be on the committee, and who else? Was there somebody else on the council that wanted to be part of that? So Linda and Carol, you're gonna have some things to read tonight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tonight?
Tonight?
Well, not for,
Well, not
he's
tonight.
We go home?
Before you go home, Dave Russell, Code Officer.
Gave us homework last week.
As you know, we sent out RFPs for the comp plan. There were 3 organizations that I sent to directly. It was in the paper. We received 5 requests for the RFP. And out of all that, we ended up with 1 applicant. I've gone through it, not soups to nuts, just kind of breezed through it. Like to have the counselors that wish to be on that committee take a look at it for a week or so. And then I'd like to, because they sent 5 copies as we requested, and then I'd like to turn it over to the planning board members, and then staff will look at it. It looks good. Wright Pierce is not the bidder on this, but they are a component that this company has worked with several times. It might be a good fit where they're already doing our downtown master plan, but again, there's some grading that has to be done, but I'd leave that up to you folks and my planning board. And
We're, excuse me, we're past the deadline, so I mean, people that wanted to submit should have already done it.
it was the 14th, and that was all in the packets that went out to them.
So there's really no need unless people want to have them resubmit, but I don't see why. I mean, they had plenty of time to.
Yeah, they-
Correct, and again, and if you look at it and they seem like what you're looking for, that's fine. If not, maybe the general consensus is to try and put it out one more time. But that'll be a decision that the reviewers make.
So the plan is for Carol and Linda to look at it, then you're gonna take it to the planning board, and then you'll,
Staff will look at it.
staff will look at it, and then get it back to the council committee, I guess, or something at that point.
Correct.
So what are we looking at for dates then on this? We thinking a month, 2 months? What are we?
I don't have a calendar.
um,
If I could have it back somehow next week, midweek, then I can make sure the planning board gets it for a week.
So we're talking about this in
It's
February
it's
then.
not War and Peace, it's.
So it's not that
So,
bad.
yeah.
Okay.
So we should be able to go through it, but they've done a lot of nice projects.
Can I ask you though, is it timing, you think, as far as why we didn't get as many back? Could it be because these other firms have been really busy at this moment because of the time?
I don't, because there was no time limit on when this had to be completed, just when they had to have the RFPs in. I know some towns, Milford, Orono, Brewer, they're all winding down on their, Milford is just getting into it, but Orono and Brewer are winding down on theirs. So I don't think it was that, especially with the interest that was shown originally.
Maybe they just had other projects or something going on.
As I say, there was no deadline on when this had to be done, just when the RFPs had to be to us.
Okay, so it sounds like then this is coming back to us in February then, from what I'm gathering from you. Is that right? Am I understand that right?
I would prefer the committee meeting in February rather than the first council
Yeah, no,
meeting.
right, that's what I mean.
Yes,
Yes, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, committee, yes.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Great.
So before we all leave, I'll hand you packets.
Okay. What I can do is when I get it to school, I'll make a copy, then I'll get the original back to you. I like to mark things up.
Perfect.
Yeah, I could do that and get it back to you. Give us a little more time. That'd give us more time to go over.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Linda and Carol.
And I'll
I believe that is it. So could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
EJ, is there a second?
Second.
Stan, all those in favor? None opposed. So we have one more committee left, and that's Linda's, the Finance Committee.
I'll call the, oh, I gotta have that too.
I
Okay.
guess so.
I'll call the City of Old Town Finance Committee to order. First item on the First item on the agenda, a second item is Code of Ordinances proposal. The city clerk is looking for a recommendation to the full council to accept a proposal for code services in the amount of $7,270 to bring the city code of ordinance up to date and make it available electronically on the city's website. Funds are to come from capital projects, account number 7200-0210, clerk records. The current balance in this account is, whoa, you're cutting it close there.
Yeah.
$7,353.78.
There you go. That's pretty good.
Good job.
Right?
I'm impressed.
So, what this will do, obviously will bring the ordinances up to date, but it also it'll make it available on our website at some point in time, and we can go further with this company with maybe agendas and minutes and stuff. This will all tie in together. So this is step one. I know you folks, that's your priority, is you want to see these up on the website. So that's the goal. I've had this money in that account for a few years now, and as you can see, it just about
Wipes
made
it
it.
Yeah.
So, the other thing to note here as moving forward, and I don't know if any of you had a chance to read the proposal, but they recommend budgeting 2,000 for recodification moving forward per year, which is what I always did. I have a list of all the ordinances from 2004 to the present. It averaged maybe 5 changes a year. So I'm halfway through gathering all of that stuff electronically so that I can ship that down to them and make it easier, you know, for them to do it. So they're basically redoing our entire ordinance. They're a different company. But I'm really impressed with, you know, how it appears, you know, how it will appear on our
How it will
website.
look.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, you know, the 2,000 moving forward is not out of range for what we've done for more than 25 years. Like I said, I'd always budgeted 2,000 for that in years past.
And it really is something we should have, and
I
it should
agree.
be done.
I
Yeah.
think that's the up-and-coming thing, is that having it online, so people won't have to come in and say what it is. You can say,
Right.
if you go to,
Yeah, and
They'll find it.
the search engine for it is phenomenal. You know, you just have to type in one word.
and you can find
And
it.
you can find it. That was one of the things that I didn't like about the former code people that I've had, is trying to search their search engine. It wasn't user-friendly, let's put it that way.
But the more words you put in, it narrows the search down to the precise.
Correct. And David and I will also have a working copy, you know, our copy will be in Microsoft Word, so that in the future, you know, if we need to change something, we can just go in and do the copy and paste and do our,
And they will. I
and
mean,
our
it's
editing, and
yeah.
as soon as that's approved by the council, I'll ship it down to the code people, and it will be immediately on our website.
I like it.
The only question I had is all the references are out of state. There's nobody,
This company they initiate out of New Jersey. They've been there
Yeah, I
for a
can
long,
see
long
that.
time.
Yeah.
They're just starting to move up into the Northeast. The other company that I had was out of Tallahassee, Florida. And another reason why I kind of didn't choose them is one of their salespeople called me up a couple years ago and said, you know, well, if you don't you know, hurry up and redo this, we're gonna have to start from scratch, and you're gonna have to pay for having the whole ordinance done. And I talked to the president of the company, and I said, that ain't happening. So anyways, like I said, I'm not gonna say this company is an underdog, because they're not, they're very, very good, but in comparison to other companies, there's another one, General Code, they deal with Laserfiche, they're a huge, huge company, and I don't think we will get the service that we will with a smaller company.
So, like they pointed out, you're gonna pretty much wipe this account out. What else do you use this account for?
That's it.
So
That's
there's
it.
nothing.
And I talked to Miles, because right now it's kind of labeled clerk records, and I just don't feel that that's really, really says what it is. When you say clerk records, I think of my boss desk, minutes, you know, stuff like that. So I would like to change it. It always was called a recodification account. So what I'd like to call is, whether it's clerk recodification, you know, or whatever, to better label it.
So there's nothing else that would come up anyways, under
No,
this.
that
month.
was designated
For that.
specifically for
Okay.
this.
I do like the idea.
Good.
very much.
You're okay with it?
Okay, so,
Quick question, how long is this an ongoing contract? What happens if,
good question.
Yes,
Worst
it's
case scenario, we
ongoing,
advertise,
yeah.
what happens?
And part of that 2,000 that I'll budget is I pay them 400 annually for their service. That's really not bad, you know, to be an ongoing maintenance type thing. I've already sent them the entire code. I had to photocopy the whole thing, but I photocopied, scanned it, so they've got the current one, so it shouldn't be.
And so they're actually gonna redo it, and if they're sending you a Microsoft file from.
Yes,
yeah.
and my hope is to reduce the books. And one of the things in the past years is I've done supplements, I've given them to every holder of the book, and they don't put them in. So you've got
Yeah.
all these ordinance books out there, and you don't know
Right,
whether they're up to
right.
date or not. If there was a time when I asked them to bring them in to me and I would do it, they never showed up. At one time, I had 75 books that I was recodifying. 75. That was the planning board, that was the council, that was the zoning board, that was all department managers. It was crazy. So I plan to reduce that to probably 10.
Well, and typically, not very many people need the whole book.
Right,
You
exactly,
need,
exactly. You know, and for anybody else, now that it's on the website.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds good.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the full council to accept a proposal from Code Services in the amount of $7,270 to bring the city code of ordinances up to date and make it available electronically on the city's website.
And second?
That's gotta be Carol, right?
Oh, Carol. Oh,
What?
Carol, you have to.
Oh, I'll second. Oh, yeah. I thought she seconded it. She said, oh, she's asking for a second. Oh, sorry. I'll second.
Almost didn't pass, Patty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. All those in favor? So moved. Adjournment.
Make motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor? So moved.
The last one.